All right. Hey, how's everybody doing today?
Good. And yourself?
How you doing today?
Is that us you're asking? We're doing good.
I'm
We're doing well.
asking you guys, yes. So we just hopped on. I am Jeanette Cornish. I'm an account manager with Digital Niche Agency, and here today for Fan Rebellion's webinar. So I'm going to wait a few minutes and let some people hop in. I see we got some people hopping in, so this is good. This is really good. How's the weather where everybody's at?
Well, I can tell you over here, it is uncharacteristically cool for Vegas.
Okay.
We're not even going to hit 90 degrees today. So
Wow.
how old am I that I'm talking about the weather?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice though. We've had some rain and cooler.
We did.
Cooler,
We had some
cooler
flooding
breaks. It's
yesterday.
nice.
Well,
Which
I'm
flooding doesn't necessarily sound good, but when you're in a dry drought, you'll take all the rain you can get.
Jimmy, how you doing over there? How you feeling?
in the midst of COVID, but and it's rainy, or it was rainy outside most of the day today, but I'm back in New York, so just being in New York and being hot
Just
and
being.
and just being.
Well,
Awesome. Well,
I want to start this. We'll wait a few minutes, I guess, but I want to start and show, like Jimmy was just out here for our show for launch of Boombox, and so we have some pictures from that. And
definitely.
yeah.
Well, Jimmy, thank you for joining us. So I introduced myself. I guess we could go ahead and get started. So the team of Fan Rebellion, if you guys want to introduce your guys' self individually, and then we can get the show rolling.
Sure, we'll do this quickly. Last time we introduced ourselves for 45 minutes. So I'm Seth Udoff, one of the three co-founders here, Fan Rebellion. I am from Austin, Texas. I've been here in Vegas over 20 years and have been a performer on stage and artist manager. Actually, we've all managed Grammy Award-winning artists, but also been producing shows here for, gosh, a long time, at least 15 years. So, and I'll pass this on to Jason.
Jason Pearson, a co-founder. I was a native of Las Vegas. My mom was a showgirl. My dad, a stage manager. My grandfather owned a casino. I have been involved in live entertainment and Vegas entertainment specifically pretty much since birth. I've worked mostly in the backstage or technical aspects of it, although I have also general managed and personal managed some acts and worked as production tour manager for some major national acts.
That's you, Jimmy.
And I'm Jimmy Manus, one of the co-founders, based out of New York, in Vegas every other week now, it seems. Artist manager, A&R guy in my DNA, from Jive Records, and have spent the better part of my life managing, producing, songwriting, and event managing shows. That's pretty much, what I do. Have a couple of movies under my belt too, but we're in the show business.
Just gonna throw that out there, a couple movies, and just let that go by.
No cap, no cap. But yeah, just did a pretty big movie and a couple of other TV shows, but no cap. Go ahead.
Awesome. So I know that you guys just wrapped your latest show in Vegas, your first production, Boombox. Tell us a little bit about that. How was that experience leading up to it, before, after, during?
I mean, so it was a lot. This is our first full-scale production since pre-COVID, and our first full-scale production under the Fan Rebellion flag. So I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a rough moment of getting the cobwebs out, finding where the stuff's buried in the warehouse and all that kind of stuff. But the truth is that the show itself really went well. So for anyone who doesn't know, the show is called Boombox, a Vegas residency on shuffle. The idea is that we have a revolving lineup, and this first lineup was headlined by CeeLo Green, who's an old friend of ours that we've done other shows with. We had Tone Loc on board, Kid and Play, we're hosting it, Thea Austin of Snap, and JJ Fad came out and did Supersonic. So we have some photos. Oh, there are the photos. So there's JJ Fad. And, the reaction from the audience was spectacular. Honestly, I don't know that I've done a show where I felt so much energy from people coming out of the show. I don't want to forget we had Eric B from Eric B and Rakim as the DJ for the show, and it really was exciting. And we're looking forward to doing it again. And the idea is we'll work with these artists, but we'll change it up a bit too.
Yeah, the idea is that the show can be a one-man rotating shuffle, so that the show boombox can have different acts that can go into it, so that the show itself can remain fresh without having to rebrand and create a whole new show title every time.
I also want to offer too that this show is a show that will also garner surprise acts. Our opening night, we had the lead singer from the Plain White T's show up. And where else in the world would you hear "Hey There Delilah" with a beatbox partnership? You know what I mean? So we want to also be known as the show that, you come there for one particular ticket, but you always walk out feeling like you get something else.
Yeah. And we had a lot of people stop by that hopefully will be performers as we go on. Teddy Riley came by.
Exactly.
We had Corrupt came by. He didn't jump on stage. Teddy jumped on stage. He didn't perform, but he certainly liked to smile on stage. But we've already had a lot of interest in having some guest acts. So,
Exactly.
And the other thing I'll say that I think is special about this show, and we can get past it, is that it's a genre of music that isn't typically represented on a showroom stage in Las Vegas. And for that reason, I think it's an important genre to explore. It's important to, we always talk about underserved niches, underserved markets for entertainment. And while this is music that appeals to everybody, there's certainly a group of people out there that are seeking this music out that aren't finding it in Las Vegas. So to that end, I think it's important, and the artists certainly seem to feel it was culturally important to them that we were doing a show like this. So that was pretty gratifying. But all right, do we show all those pictures? I didn't see them all. So yes, okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we were kind of handed a list of questions that
to keep us on topic. So since we have this tendency to ramble, we're going to try this very simple approach, and I'm gonna ask Seth a question, and then he can answer it, and then he can ask me a question, and we'll just go round robin until we get through all of the questions that we were handed. We've also got some information that we kind of prepared to kind of hopefully pizzazz up our stream here a little bit. So bring some order to it.
Yeah. So Seth, why do you think that other companies haven't adopted a model like this for funding live entertainment?
So I'll answer that question by first explaining that, our model, what's different about this model is really two major things. So first of all, historically, a producer for live shows, or if you're launching a nightclub or something, like, you would get investors on a per project basis. So every show, every project would have its own investors. And the problem with that is that the goals of the investors and the goals of the company, or the producers, if you will, are never really in full alignment, because the project can fail and the company can keep going. So, and the second thing that we address in our model is that for investing, especially in a Las Vegas project or Las Vegas show, that typically you want a large sum of money. Like, you're not letting you in with certainly not with just $25,000, and probably not with certainly not with hundreds of dollars like we do with Start Engine. And so our goal is to allow people in with smaller amounts of money, and then to diversify that risk by putting it across our multiple projects. So why haven't other companies adopted this model? I can only theorize, because we're not those other companies, but what I would guess is because it really isn't to their personal advantage to align their interests with the investors. It is easier for a company to have investors in a project, and then if that project succeeds, it's great, but if it doesn't, then the company keeps going. And so this is our way of wanting to have a longer term commitment and alignment with our investors, our partners. And it's also because of our this fan rebellion style of approaching entertainment. And we want to do something that is, I hate to use just a buzzword, but disruptive. It really is a different approach. And we really want to get our investors, our fan owners involved in what we're doing, and have a community, and have people who are giving us input and are helping us with almost like a focus group for our shows. Because in entertainment, typically everything's a damn secret until it's announced to the public. And then, then you have a chance to get feedback from people who say, hey, why didn't you do this? That would have been smart. And oh, damn, I didn't have the opportunity to talk about it with anyone outside of my office walls. So we're trying to change that up too.
So we've got two questions here. What is the big problem? What big problem does it solve? And where do you see the company 2 years from now? And if we could get the year one infographic up, we're actually kind of a little prepared for this one. So we're going to call this the hub and spoke model. The hub is going to be Fan Rebellion. The spokes are going to be the projects that are outside of it. So this kind of goes in with everything we just talked about here. So when you invest in Fan Rebellion, you're investing in the hub. That's the central hub there. And I don't know if you can see because my eyes are not that good, but those two arrows, one points towards capital investment into a project and the other floats back to profits. And the big arrows down there going to the dollar signs are dividends. So the way this is structured is that the money that is invested in Fan Rebellion allows us to capitalize and to produce, whether it's a show, a venue operation, an exhibit, or some other live entity or project. We'll call that the spoke. And each one of those spokes has a structured dividend system built into it that flows back to Fan Rebellion. And then those dividends are paid out to the investors based upon the percentage of shares that they hold. So it allows for a cash flow model within the live entertainment industry, along with the appreciation of the individual shows. Now, what this means is that we have retained earnings that stay inside Fan Rebellion. Now, this is different than the way a lot of shows typically work and goes to how we might be different. And also one of the problems that it solves. So say you have a successful show or a successful exhibit. If all of the earnings go back to those initial investors, that's great for those investors. I'm not saying that's bad. And it's also good for that particular producer, but there's no company there. And at some point in time, that project runs its course, whether that's 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, or whatever it is. And when it runs its course, you're having to start that cycle of creation all over again. Our model allows us to, if we can go from year one to year two. So we keep those spokes.
Fancy.
We keep those spokes running so that we're creating and taking those retained earnings and possibly more capital raise as needed for the projects. But those dividend pools keep getting larger. So if you come in on the first round, you're going to have a dividend participation on all of the spokes of that hub, of that wheel. And as those spokes go, you might get diluted in terms of overall ownership, as any stock position would, but your overall value and dividends you're receiving actually become larger at each step in the process. And this also means that if we wanted to take an investment for the Boombox show, we can take a separate investment in just that one entity and not have to dilute the fan ownership inside of Fan Rebellion. And this would also allow us to develop projects so that our fan owners can come to us with, I'm going to pause for a moment. I've been doing a bunch of LinkedIn outreach and a lot of social media outreach in this process. I've been contacted by smaller producers, venue owners, all saying, hey, this is great. How do I get involved? How do I do this? I think what we do is we start to build a community of both producers and investors at the same time. So someone might come to the show. We take that to our community and go, hey, this show is going to need a $50,000 capitalization or $100,000 capitalization. Here's what the idea is. Our fans, owners can give us feedback on it. And we can say, yeah, this is something you want to do. And that becomes one of our spokes. So I'm going back to my notes here so I don't ramble too much, but the problem this is solving is it allows for the production company to have retained earnings and to be able to use those retained earnings to launch other projects that can increase the dividend pool. And where do we see the company in 2 years? Well, the idea is that every year we're going to be taking return earnings and possibly some capital raise and expanding out those spokes so that we keep building a larger and greater product line.
If you change the year 3 graphic, you'll see with some vagueness, that we show that we just keep growing. And it's not necessarily 2 projects a year. I mean, these are just assumptions, and these are projects that are actually the ones that are listed are actually projects that are disclosed on our SEC filing and that are part of the what we're working on right now. But as time goes on, we're working on some licensing deals and other stuff right now. So, the order of projects may change.
So Seth, here's another question we get asked. Do you see expansion into other regions outside of Las Vegas?
Absolutely. So our focus on Las Vegas is really because we are heavily rooted here and have had lots of successes here. But and Vegas, Jason has always said he feels like Vegas could be an exporter of content similar to how New York has been. So the idea is to start here, but we would love to Live Nation style build out a network of venues and of course touring entities and get well beyond Las Vegas. So really Las Vegas is just more of a start.
So I'm going to tackle this one. What are the short-term versus long-term goals of the company? We're a startup. Our short-term goal is to raise enough capital to be able to successfully fund not just the operation of the company, but the first 1 or 2 spokes in our hub and spoke model. Long-term, it is to create a dividend system so that those spokes are constantly providing a steady source of return for our investors, and our retained earnings provide enough capital to continually expand and create more spokes. Some of those would be original IP. Some of those would be venues both in and outside of Vegas to eventually create a network of venues and touring products that we then can use those venues to help push through the country as part of a touring mechanism. Well, let's see. In our own words, what are the top reasons to invest in Fan
I'm
Rebellion?
taking these questions very literally.
Oh, I am.
Yeah.
This is going. So, Seth, in your own words, what are the top reasons to invest in Fan Rebellion?
In my own words. So I just consider, as I've been talking to people, I think that what keeps coming up is there's an excitement. So there's sort of 2 types of people that we're getting approached by. It's some people are looking for investment opportunity, and many who are looking for investment opportunity have never considered entertainment. So in that sense, it's an exciting thing to get involved in. It's a participatory thing to get involved in if you are coming at it with that investor mindset. But many people are not necessarily looking to invest. These are people who are fans of entertainment, people who are fans of Las Vegas, fans of music, and frankly, that's who Jimmy and Jason and I really are. And this is for them more of an opportunity to just to get into this business and to turn it into a what we all hope is a very financially advantageous project for them. So I don't know if I'm really answering the question directly, but I am self-proclaimed not the financial model guy here. So
I wanted to let me jump
Jimmy.
in for a quick sec. My feeling is, and I wanted to just sort of piggyback off of what Seth was saying, that, while we are definitely gearing our company to speak with real investors, this also though speaks to the fan, and something that's been, reoccurring in my head as someone that puts on, over 100 shows a year. I'm constantly bogged down with, hey, Jimmy, can I get a ticket? Can you hook me up with a t-shirt? The way that I feel about what we're doing is that we're giving people an opportunity to be part, and not to come to, but to be part of the experience. So, you invest in Fan Rebellion, you become part of the show. You essentially become the ticket. You become the inside guy or girl to what we're doing in Vegas. And it's a totally different experience.
You're right. So sometimes I forget, but I've had people come to me and say, why don't you say more, because we have all this marketing stuff out now. Why don't you say more about how I can get involved, or how we get involved in the process, and we can help with these decisions, or about the access. Because in my mind, and I think because especially when we're in fundraising mode, we're very focused on the business part of it. But there are many people where the business is secondary, and it's just they're just interested in the process and want to be involved. And especially if you can get into Start Engine and do throw in couple $100, so it's not like a big investment, then the chances of you getting in a couple $100 enjoyment out of that, whether the company is as successful as you want it to be or not, the chances are pretty high, because you can take advantage of some of the freebies that we'll be offering, and some of the the perks that we already offer when you invest in Start Engine. But even this last show, I mean, we invited we invited everyone who's following our campaign to have some free tickets to the show, and we had a number of people reach out to us for that. So I think just that involvement I think you're right, is super important to a lot of people, and maybe we're so jaded that I don't always think of that.
One question I think that kind of hubs into that is, what is unique about your company? I think that the business model is unique. I think that what we're trying to do in terms of the way we're funding it and the actual products that we're trying to produce are unique. But I think the people in the company are unique. The organization that we have built and the people that are coming out and starting to become part of this organization come from a diverse set of backgrounds. I think it's fair to say that Jimmy and I and Seth's backgrounds are not the same. I think it's fair to say that if you were to go to the Start Engine website, you'd see that there are Neil Jackaway, a Sandy Zusman, a Keith Wright, an Izzy. None of us come from a shared background. And what you have is a divergence of experiences, ages, cultures that give us a perspective on things as a collective that I think is unique, especially considering how tight of a group that we are. And it is my hope that as we begin to get fan owners, they'll begin to engage in that process as well. We had a gentleman, Felix, reach out to us through LinkedIn. He saw a post that I put out. He saw the material. He went and checked out both the Start Engine page. He went and checked out our Facebook page. He reached out on LinkedIn and he said, hey, I think his initial message was, hey, I just put in a few $100. Now what? I want to get involved. Tell me what I can do. We've started engaging with him. We're having conversations with him for marketing purposes, community building. Just yesterday, I had a call with someone who the exact same type of process. So as the fan owners begin to become a greater number, the goal is for them to become of greater influence and greater ability to help push the message.
Resources.
Yeah, resources. And also involvement. If they have a marketing skills, if they have live production skills, if they're interested in being involved in entertainment because they're musicians or actors or producers, like all of those skill sets become very valuable to a startup.
Well, I'll tell you what surprised me is that, again, I think I get very focused on the content we're doing and the objectives that we have. But I've had some people reach out just because they're interested in the process, they're interested in what we're doing. Literally I think I told you about this. I don't think I told Jimmy, but literally someone who worked for the hotel for Westgate came up to me inside the theater, and I told you this, right? And said, hey, you're that founder guy. I said, yeah. And she said that she had just been following everything we were doing, and she was so excited. And as a Las Vegas resident, was excited that she's a non-entertainment person and she could get involved in the entertainment and get involved in what makes Las Vegas special. So
this is a good
at less than what it costs to buy coffee at Starbucks.
Yeah.
Part of what we're doing.
So I think that I hope that answers the what is unique about it. There's a question here on how do we choose what shows to invest in. I think there's an important distinction here. While it is conceivable that we would invest in shows, promote shows, produce shows, these words have like specific meanings. That's more than we want to cover on this sort of a format. But how would we choose the content that we'd put money or time and effort behind? Part of it is, do we believe in the project? I mean, do we think it has a financial future? Do we think it has a message that we agree with? And it depends too on what we're talking about. We're looking at developing venues is very different than developing a show, which is very developed than developing an exhibit. Is it going to be a residency or a permanent brick and mortar facility? Or is it going to be something that's going to be packed up in trucks and toured? But part of it is doing due diligence on the financial models. I mean, I can tell you that I have spent the greater part of the last 2 years staring at Excel sheets and trying to really understand IRRs, ROIs, the cost of touring, the continual increase in costs, fuel costs, transportation costs, hotel rooms, flights, building materials. These are all really reflective in the entertainment industry as much as they are any other industry.
There's also an interesting change here. Like when we are doing projects and you're raising money on each project, you tend to get the money more or less in hand first before you start pursuing opportunity. And so what's been different here is that we realize that when we're talking to you, we're talking to some accredited investors also, like there has to be some meat on the bone and say, hey, these are the things we're working on. This is what's happening. And so So now what's interesting is we actually have some projects that we're negotiating or that are the gears are already turning on, because we have to be able to say, hey, if you're getting involved in Fan Rebellion, this is what we're doing. And because of that, a lot of the conversations recently, we've been, working on a couple of, locking up the licensing the rights on a couple of deals. One celebrity family estate for a project, and one celebrity who has a big IP, which sounds like a terrible thing to say. But Jimmy's laughing, I know it. But we, it's a different approach for us, but it also starts to become exciting because, again, I talked about how everything's a secret until you announce it. Well, if you lock up these sorts of rights, then we can start talking, and we will soon, about some of these and say, hey, this is what we're working on. This is what, if you're investing with us, this is what you're investing in doing.
Right.
So,
We got a question here. What is the current market opportunity? I'll kick this one off to Seth, but it depends on what you mean by, it depends on what you mean by market opportunity. So there's multiple markets that we're looking at here. So the Las Vegas market is one market. The touring market is another market. And those aren't necessarily unconnected markets. So a show, we'll take Boombox for an example, or an exhibit, we're working on one of those as well, could start in Vegas and have a 10-week, 20-week, 27-week run as an in-market opportunity. But by building that brand out, that IP and that show, that exhibit could then be taken out of this market and put onto the national tour market, or put into another in-market opportunity, Miami, Los Angeles, Chicago, wherever, and have a 3-month, a 4-month, a 6-month limited run there. So the market's quite expansive in that sense. And it could also be global as the company grows. But I think it has to happen as we get the financial capacity and the fan base in order to do that. And I think that market expands as our fan owners grow, because they become our tip of the spear for how we market and develop and grow as a company and product diversification.
Hey, Jeanette, can you get us off this boring list of questions and help us focus on some
No
different
worries.
directions?
These are great questions.
I love the question.
No offense to the boring list of questions.
So it sounds like you guys have great shows going on. Boombox kicked off. You guys have some other ones in the works. I know some things we can't talk about necessarily. So for anybody who's interested for more information, I'm going to drop the Start Engine page in the link. And you guys can kind of take a look from there. Let me make sure I'm dropping it in the right one. So yeah, so I know community is a big part of your guys's ethos, right? And I feel like we've kind of touched on that. So we have what you guys are doing with the shows, building it out, people can join in, but I know community is such a big factor. Is there anything specifically that you kind of want to touch on that is not out in the world, that you're building this community? It's not only just for investments, but it's you're joining something bigger than that. Can you kind of touch on that?
Well, I mentioned a little bit about this feedback loop, about the idea of having sort of a focus group. And, I think like we're talking about even just this Boombox show, to talk simply, like we're talking about the next incarnation of the lineup and who we would get involved, and just to have, we again get jaded. We're in the middle of all this stuff. So, Jimmy and I get into conversations about headliners for shows all the time. And it's definitely affected by our own perception, or literally our contacts, or who we like working with or don't. Whereas if we have people to reach out to and say, hey, who would you like to see, or how could this work? I think that'd be a really interesting way to assess things. But also, I just think, I find ideas and concepts in the strangest places. And so to have other people hypothesize and have other people throwing things against the wall to see what sticks within our community, I think could become an interesting place. And to get just left field ideas, left field contacts, because you never know who's, they used to say 6 degrees of separation. Now it's got to be 2 degrees of separation. So whoever knows somebody or has an idea about something, like, I feel like we're going to have this distinct advantage over those companies that are operating in a bubble. whether that bubble is because of the secrecy or the bubble is because of this corporate structure that keeps them, very playing things very safe.
On a real specific level, we're actively starting to build our first community outreach council, if you will, or volunteer group, or whatever you want to call it. We've had a few people reach out to us. We're hampered. Look, there are regulations and rules that I don't know that every person is aware of, but like we have like 135 investors, I think, on the Start Engine page right now, and we don't get contact information or the ability to actively talk to them during this process. So because of that, it's very difficult to begin that two-way dialogue and two-way conversation that we'd like to. A few of those investors on their own accord have reached out to us and began that conversation, and they have actively said, I'd like to be involved more. I'd like to do more. And we're in the process of organizing their efforts right now. The first wave of that has to be from a company growth point of view, expanding the awareness of our company and increasing the number of investors we have. I've set an internal goal of trying to reach 1,000 investors. I don't care if it's $105 or $10,000 in investment, but that number is important to me, because at 1,000, I then want each one of them to be able to share a Facebook post, share a LinkedIn post, talk to their friends and family, because that helps spread that awareness of both our products and the company itself without having to spend hard marketing dollars. And those sort of aids are immediately helpful. Secondary to that, I've got an outreach going on right now in the LinkedIn community where I'm trying to actively reach out to theater students, drama students, technician students that are all working in the live entertainment field and saying, hey, you might not be able to invest money, but is this a part of a community you'd like to be involved in? You have a material interest in seeing the success of live entertainment. Can you jump on board and enjoy and help us grow this company so that there is a place for you to come both to work and to have input as a fan owner down the road? And I think those outreaches are something that we are going to be focusing on over the next 3 to 6 months to expand the base of people and our reach.
Definitely. Jimmy, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was gonna say that, growing up as an A&R guy for Jive Records, I was always taught to look for what's not out there, right? So not necessarily looking for another hit R&B act or a hit pop act, right? It was about, Clive Calder, who's one of the greatest brains that I've ever worked under, always said to me, find out what's not out. It's the purple cows. You know what I mean? And our company, I believe, is the purple cow concept to creativity on the stage. And to me, it's not just the Vegas stage. To the guy's points, it's the stage in Iowa, it's the stage in India, it's the stage in Pakistan.
But it might not even be the stage. Like, that's the other thing that's kind of crazy. Like we're not trying to tell you we know where it's going. Like, we're saying things are changing and we want to be a part of that change. And if the future shows aren't on a stage at all, or if they're
interactive as compared to
or whatever. Sorry, Jimmy, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I'm just saying, like, being open to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is that. It's that we feel like we are offering people an opportunity. I mean, we all turn on Netflix, and that while there's a great menu of shows that we can watch, we have very little to no say-so outside of investing our $9.99 a month to participate in what Netflix is offering. And again, nothing wrong with Netflix. I think that it's a great platform. But, here there is a pathway to having input to what we're serving. You know what I mean? And I think that that's unique and different than many other businesses, and that alone, that's the purple cow that's in the room. It's like, well, you know what? You do have a voice. And we don't want to mislead anyone and think that, you come and you lay down $105 and then next thing you know, you get Seth, myself, or Jason on the phone and say, well, we don't want to do CeeLo this year. We want to do this artist or that artist. It's more complex than that, right? But
CeeLo, I got bad news for you.
Yeah,
Sally put in $105 and she says you're off the stage tonight.
And that's it. But I don't know of any other company where you can actually come in at such a small investment and actually have a voice that is a voice that will resonate with the leadership of the company. You know what I mean? So we actually do pay attention, to what our partners, for lack of a better word, what our investors are saying, and we listen to our fans as well. You know what I mean? We want to answer that, and I don't know that there is that opportunity. I can tell you for me personally, when Seth and Jason, convinced me to be part of this Vegas explosion, and we started talking about what kind of company this would be. I never felt like I'd had a voice before in Vegas, and especially, being a man of color, I certainly didn't think that I had a voice, and these guys in our business have proven that to be different. Not only do we have a voice, we have a pretty loud voice in
Yeah,
Vegas.
it's when you make the Netflix reference, it's interesting. So I'm writing a piece right now, and if it's accepted, it'll be a Rolling Stone thing. And what in a market like Las Vegas in particular, I feel like it's the illusion of choice in a way, not real choice in what you see. So Netflix, obviously you see whatever's on Netflix, but it's easy enough to watch Hulu or to watch Paramount Plus or whatever other, HBO. But when you come to, and when you go to a market like, I would say like New York, then anyone who can pay rent on the theater really can get a venue and you can advertise, and so crazy stuff can have success. But when you come to Vegas, the venues are generally controlled by a very small number of people and companies. So it's kind of the illusion of choice. And, it's not really what's in your playlist. Like you can't just, get the, I want to see that now because it's interesting to me, or because, some algorithm brought it to you. Now it's like, well, I can see whatever I want as long as it's past muster with these couple of gaming companies, couple of venue owners, and then I have that choice. And in the I don't remember exactly what I read, but it was, it's like in the Matrix, it's the illusion of choice. You think that's air you're really breathing, like you don't know what it really is. Like it's manufactured for you. And we want to, through our ownership base, our fan base, we want to be able to come up with things that haven't been thought of. And honestly, by getting outside of this large corporate paradigm, like we create more opportunities to do more unique things and more niche driven opporiddon't
That's awesome.
Uh,
That brings me, oh, I'm sorry. Did you have something else to say?
No.
cut them off.
Cut me off.
No, I don't want to cut you off. So if you have something, please feel free.
No, by all means.
Okay. So I do have a question from one of our audience members, Mark, and I think that this goes hand in hand. So community voice, everybody has kind of a say, but in this regard, what demographics do your productions appeal to?
So do you want to hit? Yeah, you want to hit it, Jimmy? I mean, the goal is really to have a broad spectrum.
So each product may have a unique demographic. I mean, that's a necessity of having a theme or having a structure or having a specific artist on stage. But the idea would be, as a company, not to have products that only appeal to, or that have the desire to be attended by one specific cultural group or demographic group or racial group or sexual orientation group. Listen, I'll take a moment here on silent this. I grew up in the theater industry, which I think was wonderful. And it actually exposed me to an enormous amount of variety of people of all walks of life, shapes, colors, styles, opinions, you name it. And there's a real tolerance within that type of community, because everyone is focused on trying to create something special and trying to create something significant to make the audience enjoy it. So while we might have a show, Boombox, that might veer towards one specific audience base or fan base, it doesn't mean that we couldn't have another show that appeals to completely different. There does have to be some economic viability to those choices, but a product that might not be economically viable in Las Vegas might be economically viable in Chicago or LA or on tour nationally in small markets. So the goal would be to have a wide variety of products, both shows, exhibits, and venues that appeal to a wide variety of people, with the idea that we would also be able to mingle those different groups together and expose them to things they might not normally have sought out.
i.e., bringing plain white tees to Boombox
Yes.
and
Right.
putting them on
Well-
stage. I mean, I think words like demographics and words like genre and things like those are like prefab concepts, right? Like, is it entertainment? You know what I
Right.
mean? McDonald's
Russell, I
speaks.
think everyone likes a variety in what they're watching. They're not necessarily tied. Like I love one kind of music, but it doesn't mean I want to watch that every night.
Right.
And
Exactly. Exactly.
I think I'll pick on one company that I think is not too small to pick on. So Cirque du Soleil, which I think has done some amazing creative concepts over the years. If I could point at one, I think huge mistake they made is that all of their shows are roughly the same size. They're all sort of variations on a theme, meaning, acrobats with interesting music. Like I'm not saying they're not unique, because I could certainly tell them apart in a second if I'm watching them myself. But if you're describing them, you're not an entertainment person. They're all similar size audience, similar price tag, similar things happening on stage. And so what happens there is not that any of those shows isn't necessarily good, but it's that, does someone come into town and then watch every Cirque show? I don't think so. And I don't think who wants to do that. I don't even know if you want to watch more than one, because you want some variety. So I think our goal would be to have a wide variety of projects, and to have the ability, from business perspective, to ping pong our customer around the different projects. They can experience the variety that we're offering. And part of that ability to ping pong them, if I can just, slam large companies that I still have to work with, is that we want to have our own ticketing systems ultimately, so that we have access to these customers, because currently most of the shows we do are through companies like Ticketmaster and others, where we don't really have access to the customer directly. It's their customer, which means, in the past, I think we had as many as 6 shows running at once, and we couldn't send the customer from one show to another show because they weren't our customer.
We couldn't even email them to see if they liked the show, or I mean, there was
to get a
no
review,
no communication capacity, because you don't currently own the customer in that sense.
So
Awesome. I have another question. This is from someone anonymous. Thank you, anonymous. It says, will Fan Rebellion expand into live entertainment in the metaverse?
Yes.
Yeah, we've already had some conversation about that, and there's definitely,
we're in active conversations with some providers and some partners that would be able to expand our capacity to do that. The answer is yes.
I think watching the development of that's going to be interesting. I don't think that anyone really understands where it's going. Like right now it's such a niche thing for people who enjoy that sort of entertainment. But I think as time goes on, the live entertainment experience is going to become more of a hybrid experience. As we've been saying, maybe it doesn't involve a stage.
Yep.
Maybe it involves multiple artists in multiple venues. Maybe it involves it's an experiential thing that actually doesn't have artists involved. So I think as that starts to reveal itself,
there's technological limitations that are being explored by companies way better funded than we are at the moment. But the overall objective, yes, would be to create a hybrid experience where a person could have the visual experiences that a live entertainment event has from your living room. And that your friend may be at the live entertainment experience, and that you may be in your living room, but that you can both partake in that event, that concert, that exhibit, and have that sort of connectivity that physical space limitations can sometimes be hard to overcome.
Or even that you have a metaverse or a VR type of aspect to a live entertainment product, so that not that it replaces it, like, oh, I already saw that, but it's augments it, it's different. And you're like, oh my God, now I have to experience that from that side of the room, from that side of the camera, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So yes was the answer, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think there's so much room for growth and expansion. I know you guys spoke about it a little bit as far as, we're in Vegas now, but there's so many opportunities in Miami, New York, Chicago, touring. But what is the timeline of expansion for you guys?
It would be difficult for me to put a peg on a timeline. So I'll say this again, we are a startup, and a lot of the decisions that we make do get hinged on our ability to raise funds. So how involved and how good we are at raising funds, and then these fan owners that we hope to bring into the fold, their ability to spread the message and help us raise funds as well affects that. Ideally, a 2 to 3 year time frame, we're outside of Las Vegas. With something, maybe we're doing some limited touring and limited operations with certain products in 18 months. I think it's important to remember that you have to build brands and IPs. We're not trying to just take something that's already there, rehash it, and send it back out. What we're trying to do is create original content and original venue operations. So big picture, I mean, very 30,000 feet in the air, as a friend of mine says all the time. I think that we want to have a network of venues that may or may not have a unified theme, but that would all have a unified operational capacity. And those venues work as a network, whether they're 300-seat venues with some drinking and beveraging themed, or whether they're larger venues or a mixed match of it. They provide a network that original content can be produced in Las Vegas through some venues that we have here. And we create an ecosystem that allows for original content to be produced, distributed, in that sense, just like you would say in a TV sense, but distributed across those network of venues, and that you use the branding and the capacity to build an IP identity in Las Vegas, and then you send it out across the network. On a simpler scale, I think we can build shows, exhibits, and product that your already existing network of promoters could buy into, and you could be distributing those across your existing venues and existing facilities quicker.
Well, I think there are stages to everything we're going to do. And, right now we have a show in a showroom time slot in someone else's showroom, but that's not actually our goal.
Right.
It's a Ticketmaster ticketed venue. It's while a great actually property to work with, the Westgate, it's just not our goal to rent 90 minutes of time in their venue. Like, our goal is to
have the opposite of what we
our own venues, and to have the food and beverage revenue, and to have control over other aspects, whether it's just not just revenue streams, but the experience for our guests. But I think, but that will progress as time goes on. And as Jason said, we might have some touring dates. In fact, we're already looking at a few dates for like this Boombox show. But just because we have a few doesn't mean, in my mind, that we've made it outside of Vegas.
Right.
But something I think is important that so Jason brought up that this depends on funding, and while this webinar is put together to discuss Start Engine and this equity crowdfunding, I think that what's also important for someone who gets involved, someone who is a $105 fan owner in the company, is that while I actually would hope that we would raise significant funds through Start Engine, through the equity crowdfunding, it doesn't mean those are the only funds we'll get. So we already had a few $100,000 we brought in before we started this, and this arm of fan owners becomes a great marketing tactic in a way. So partly it feeds itself, right? So you guys get interested, you tell your friends, and incrementally it grows. When we post things, hopefully you're sharing those, and we grow this network and we get more people that way. But it is also appealing to a larger accredited investor that might be putting in 6 or 7 figures to see this level of support that we have.
Proof of concept. And
to see the people getting on board. So it's interesting, as we're still talking to some bigger investors also, that the marketing of having fan owners is not just about raising money as fan owners, but also in the way we're perceived when others would put money in. So I would not be surprised if we get some pretty significant investment from larger investors during this time period as well.
And I'd add on to that, besides investors, and again, theoretically, big picture, 30,000 feet, if we can reach 1, 2, 3, 4,000 and more, 10,000 fan owners, those become engaged individuals, and then sponsorship money becomes a viable option, because you have just like a social influencer is being paid by corporations because they have the ability to distribute a message across their social network. As we have fan owners and that network expands, we can begin to leverage that to create revenue streams for Fan Rebellion and our fan owners, because we can pick up sponsorship money that then feeds into the system. That sponsorship money allows us to add another spoke to that wheel, create those dividends. And that's capital investment coming in from a sponsorship environment that doesn't dilute our current investor pool, that allows us to open up another venue or launch another show.
So on that note, I wanted to bring up something that we have one more fancy infographic.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'd hate to let go by, hate to waste that. But basically, as I've just talked about bringing in larger investors, I don't want to make it sound like our Start Engine investors that might come in for just $200. Like those matter very much to us. So I didn't mean to make it sound like that doesn't. So, and what I wanted to show, Ian, if you could put that up real quick. So this is, these are not projections. This is just to give you an idea. But, if you were a $200 investor through Start Engine, which equals about 40 shares, and that actually changes depending on if you've, whatever the bonuses are, whenever you put the money in. And if we make an assumption that through either through the rest of this fundraising round or through this plus our Reg D accredited investor round, we raised about 1.8 million is what we wrote there. This is what I'm reading without my glasses on. So that means that your 40-ish shares are 0.0009%. Well, if we were to run just with what we're working on now, the Boombox show, and it's running at, let's call it 60% occupancy average with 27 weeks of shows over the course of a year, it would pay back a $2.13 dividend. These are all hypotheticals. This is not me saying this is what you're going to get. There's a lot of ifs in that chart. But having said that, we just want to show you that while you're waiting for your shares to appreciate, the company value to appreciate, there's money to be made along the way. And so through the perks of being able to attend some of these things and get some freebies here and there, but also through the ability to literally get paid back on the projects that we launch, your investment doesn't just sit there and quietly have to, appreciate until you have an exit strategy.
And on this infographic, the second year, the dividends are a little bit better on the first project because you have less capital cost to launch the additional product. So the idea here would be the company, going back to the hub and spoke model, would have some retained earnings, call it $800,000 for that first year. That $800,000 would get reinvested in the second project. We didn't have to sell stock or borrow money for. That increases your overall dividend margin for the second year, the third year, the fourth year. So the idea is we're hoping that our investors want to come along for, a 3 to 10 year journey with us as we build out a company with the goal of having, a whole bunch of spokes in a whole bunch of cities with a lot of dividends and a lot of cash flow and a lot of variety.
Yeah, thank you guys for that visual. That definitely gave a perspective to everything. That taps into Edward. He's in the audience and he asked a question. So he was wondering, when this campaign closes, will there be another chance of becoming an investor if they don't make the deadline here at Start Engine?
So what I expect, and somebody else who's not named Seth may want to catch me if I say, there are so many rules about what we're allowed to say.
We've got a list of we can't say things.
The SEC no-nos.
So we're but if you see me mumbling, that's why.
But
what
I will say,
anybody can tap into the Start Engine page, go to their social media pages, maybe reach out directly if you have their email address, if there's any specific financials that you want to throw out. We can't do it here, so just want to say that.
But I do want to say, Jeanette, that I think that what we've learned in this process is through people that are reaching out on their own, and the types of contact we've had off of the marketing we've done, limited marketing to date, is that I think that this fundraising is going to be a bit of an ongoing process. So I would expect that when the Start Engine round is over, that I would expect that we would probably do other rounds in the future. I know that there are other companies out there that are, and we talk about Legion M, who we're very fond of their business model. Legion M just finished their 8th round, and they just announced their 9th round.
Yeah, there will be.
So I would expect that we will continue to want to pull people in and get them involved, and And I'm sorry if I'm not being more specific. I just don't want to say any of the things I've been told not to say that I'm not remembering what not to say.
No, that's great. I mean, we're in the beginning and, there's a big, bright future ahead. So I think there will be definitely more moments to invest if you don't catch them in this next month or so. So we're coming to, the last 5 minutes. Is there anything specific that you guys want to speak about, as far as the top reasons to invest, speaking to the investment opportunity, anybody who's new here that might not know? I mean, we touched on so many things, but if there's one thing that you can leave off with, what would that be?
Well, to not ramble more, I think that okay. So my 1 minute elevator pitch for this is that if you are interested in being involved in a live entertainment company and having a voice, we set our target investment at $105 because we really wanted to make it as equitable, and
Our minimum
invest at $105 as equitable as possible so that we could cast as wide of a net as we could. I want the 22-year-old college student as much as I want the 70-year-old retiree on a fixed income, because those are the spans of the people that I have in my life, and everyone in between that. And we are trying to build a community where we can create live experiences, entertainment that will be something that is fun, beneficial, and enjoyable for that same wide spectrum of people. So when we try to build that community out and make it as accessible and equitable as possible in how we were taking funds, we also were going to try to build those experiences and those entertainment options out as equitable as possible. It is not easy to launch a startup company. This is something that is new, and we certainly do need the help and the involvement of the people that are coming on as fan owners. We welcome reaching out to us. We welcome contacting us. We welcome your feedback, your willingness to help join us. Like, we called the company Fan Rebellion because we are actually trying to rebel against some of the things that have honestly frustrated us to no end in this process. But rebellions take an army, and rebellions take hard work. And we're hoping that we can rally people to the cause to be able to create something that might be genuinely unique.
And I just want to say, we came off of, about a decade of working under one company flag, doing all sorts of other shows and artist management and whatnot. And so there was a nervousness starting a new company, Fan Rebellion. So new attitude, who dis? But having said that, in this first year of operation, we have two shows in operation. We have, the Boombox show. We have Midnight Sky over at the Palms, which is a partnership with what we co-produced with Sky D Miles, who's spectacular Vegas talent, who incidentally sings a CeeLo song over there, and we dragged CeeLo and Eric B over to watch, which was fun. But having said that, look, we have these two shows going, and we, I think we're still allowed to say this, but in 2 weeks, we can tell you we booked this artist for, a 7-figure amount. And we just confirmed another artist. So like, we're already doing 7-figure revenue in this brand new company. And this doesn't mean like we're, rolling in the dough and,
these projects are expensive. They're expensive. Yeah. And you can see on the financials, they're expensive.
But it does mean that we're not selling snake oil. Like, this isn't some imaginary idea now where, hey, I hope we can get some people involved and say, hey, look what we did in the past. Let's do something. Like, we're doing it with this company. And I don't see why it's going to stop. It's going to grow and grow and grow. And so for me, if I were an outsider with the opportunity to get involved, something like this, I would think this is an exciting time to get in. But I definitely, as a founder in this, feel like we're now offering an opportunity. We're not, this isn't us with our hand out. Like, there's an opportunity here. This is something interesting.
Definitely. Jimmy, anything from you before we hop?
I just say come and be part of Vegas. Stop coming to Vegas. Be part of Vegas. We're given an opportunity to be part of Vegas. It's different on the other side. One less cup of coffee a year. You could be part of it.
I'm dropping the chat.
Listen, that's for you. Stop stopping at Starbucks.
That's it. Stop stopping at Starbucks. Invest in Fan Rebellion.
That's in
That's it.
Fan Rebellion.
I dropped the Start Engine link one more time for people that may have missed it in the beginning. Any other questions or things that may have not been answered in this round, please feel free to reach out via social media. Please keep us posted on portal updates. And yeah, this was a pleasure, you guys, Jimmy, Jason, and Seth. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jeanette.
Thanks,
All
Jeanette.
right, have a good day.
Feel better, Jimmy. Talk to you later.
Thank you guys. Bye.